Spice melange, the lifeblood of the known universe, the very instrument with which humanity has transformed itself and evolved into something unrecognizable. By the time of Dune, spice is the single most precious substance in the universe, and with a few drops able to buy entire planets, spice decides who is in power and who is not, who lives and who dies, and how human civilization functions on every single level. Spice, however, is also infinitely more than that, and through it, Frank Herbert guides us through some of Dune's darkest lessons. From the elite's hedonistic and never-ending search for eternity, and also what Dune ultimately came down to, the fatal danger of a charismatic leader, a leader for whom the people would do anything and everything. In this video, we'll explore the role of spice within the wider philosophy of Dune, and examine how this miraculous substance that has propelled humanity to the stars is actually a curse whose sole purpose is to keep mankind enslaved and under the tyranny of our story's own hero, Paul Atreides himself. Before we can understand the philosophy and curse of spice, however, we must first understand spice itself. The spice melange is a natural substance found on the planet of Arrakis, deep underneath the endless sands of Dune itself. The process by which spice is produced is complex, and it begins with what is called pre-spice mass, a fungusoid growth produced when the excretions of young sandworms are combined with water. The gases produced from this union so deep beneath the ground cause immense tension which continues to build until finally we have release. A massive explosion erupting into the surface of the endless sands and with enough force to kill all nearby life forms, causing the pre-spice mass to be left exposed in the deadly heat of Arrakis. With enough exposure to the elements of Dune, this substance is transformed into what we know as spice melange. Spice has many benefits, all of them nefarious. It has the capacity of lengthening one's lifespan by decades or even centuries through its miraculous healing properties, and most importantly, it grants its user awareness. It heightens one's intellectual capacity, and in the right, or rather wrong hands, it can bestow upon an individual the most dangerous thing in the universe, prescience. The ability to see the future by calculating every single available outcome with mathematical precision. It is this ability that grants melange its very special place in the Imperium. The granting of prescience, even on a very limited scale, gives the navigators of the Spacing Guild the ability to predict the correct path to take while traveling the dangerous vastness of folded space, a dimension that permits the Guild's ships to travel at speeds faster than light. Without melange, this type of travel that has connected the universe is rendered nearly impossible. Lastly, with a high enough dosage, the spice's psychoactive effects can provide its user a level of understanding so high that access is granted to the memories of their ancestors, stored deep within their genes and used to deadly effect. Why then are the benefits of spice nefarious, and why is melange itself a curse? The answer lies where most answers in Dune lie: human nature. Spice can only be produced on Arrakis, and its harvesting is incredibly difficult and deadly. What this means is that this incredible substance also suffers from incredible scarcity. With its unparalleled benefits to one's health and mental awareness on the level of the individual, the combination of scarcity and an infinitely high demand leads to even higher prices. Only the rich can afford spice, and the more spice you have, the richer you are. Spice is the true sign of wealth and power among the elite, an elite looking gluttonously after their supply of melange and ensuring that it is only they that have access to it. The problem is that while the benefits of spice on your health are undeniable, its effects are addicting, and withdrawal from it is fatal. If the elite stop consuming it, they will die, and thus you have an imperium whose ruling class relies entirely upon access to a single scarce substance located on a single planet, produced by a single species. And yet they do not stop taking it. In humanity's hedonism, in its endless search for more, they do not stop consuming that subtle and insidious poison, as Paul puts it. It gives them an edge, gives them an advantage over their rivals, and moreover, it gives them life. It heals their ailments, it strengthens their bodies, and it triples their lifespans. They need it, they yearn for it, even though they know they will not be able to stop once they take it. They are afraid of death, and it is partly what leads them to the spice's embrace, and they allow it to consume this long life that they now have, if they continue to have access to it, of course. The greed tied to melange is the first aspect of the spice's curse in the universe of Dune. The second is prescience by itself. The ability to calculate the future is what ultimately chains Paul to the path that he ultimately walked. If you know what is going to happen with mathematical precision, how can you stop it? This was the conundrum that Muad'Dib faced. He saw the jihad that would be unleashed upon the universe, and he saw what his role was in it. He also saw that if he killed himself, the jihad would take place regardless, and perhaps, without him to guide it, even more people would die at its hands. And thus the path is locked, the future was calculated, and it came to pass. But Paul, having the knowledge of what would happen, affected his own decision-making, and it is this that forced him down the path that he walked in the first place. 61 billion people dead, dozens of planets gone, the universe enslaved. But Paul does not know the future. He calculates it with the help of spies, and it is these certain but ultimately uncertain calculations that lead to the genocide of Dune Messiah. And beyond that, it is with spies that individuals such as Paul are made into living gods and prophets to begin with. It is with a chemical substance and the eugenics of the Bene Gesserit and their social engineering, always with the help of spies, that the myth of Muad'Dib is created and the entire cosmos is massacred. And speaking of the Bene Gesserit, it is with the spies' ability to grant access to genetic memories that organizations such as the Bene Gesserit are able to maintain unparalleled continuation. That is how they have been able to develop and see through plans that have spanned millennia, and it is the primary characteristic that gives them an edge over the universe and turns the fate of humanity into whatever they wish it to be. Nonetheless, none of this would have been possible without the third aspect of melange. Thousands upon thousands of years before the events of Dune, humanity used machines to calculate the path in folded space, which enabled faster-than-light travel. Humanity's machines eventually developed free and independent thought and enslaved the universe. With the Butlerian Jihad, humanity managed to overthrow its oppressors and eventually establish its new imperium, making a pact to never again create a machine in the likeness of the human mind, a machine that this type of space travel required. As such, for the universe to remain truly connected, spies had to be used. The guild maintained a monopoly on it, so much so that the Imperium's calendar marked its years before and after the guild's founding. Spies, however, is what maintained a monopoly on the guild, and thus humanity as a whole, if it wished to retain the interconnected universe that had been forged following its exit from Earth tens of thousands of years ago. While the interests of the universe and those that control the production of spies are aligned, a middle ground can be reached. The guild and Chom with their privileges, and the emperor and the great houses with theirs. The status quo was largely beneficial to all of them. Everything changed when the move against House Atreides was made, and Paul, stuck between a rock and a hard place, and with nothing to lose and everything to gain, managed to wrestle control of the entire universe through one single thing: spies. Paul, having the capacity to destroy spies, gave him control of it, and through the melange, he gained control of both the guild and the Imperium, which relied upon it on an ultimate level, societal and economical. After all, a major lesson that Dune teaches us is that having the capacity to destroy something means that you ultimately dominate it. Thus, humanity's over-reliance on a singular resource made it susceptible to any and all powers that had the capacity to threaten that resource. Humanity and its elite was enslaved by its own greed, addiction, and gluttony, and in order to salvage any sort of aspiration they had left, in order to satisfy the bare minimum of their greed, they bowed down to the new state of affairs and participated in the genocide of the universe and the creation of a fundamentalist totalitarian regime, not necessarily out of genuine belief, but out of self-interest. This is especially the case as the series continues to progress with God Emperor of Dune and beyond, in which that most precious of resources is kept artificially scarce under the control of the tyrant Leto, who drip feeds it to those that he needs, deprives it from those that he doesn't, and ultimately uses it to cement his rule and fulfill his dream of the golden path that will save humanity, though that is a story for another time. Ultimately, on a smaller and more personal level, the story of Spice is a story of human nature, of greed and of self-destruction. Spice curses anyone who uses it with good health and long lives, before stripping them of their humanity and chaining them to its abuse. On a larger scale, through its priceless benefits in humanity's economic development, and especially that of the great houses, spice becomes the only thing that keeps the universe functioning, and the mere threat of its destruction turns everyone into a slave. Almost as if humanity never existed without spice, as if there was no time in which we did not use it, and as such, if it was gone, we would be as well. That, naturally, is a lie. Humanity existed for millennia without spice, and would survive even without it. The truth is that we established a hierarchy of values. In that hierarchy, the enjoyment of the benefits of spice by those who wield power is infinitely more important than the risks involved with humanity's over-reliance to it. And that there is the root of the problem. A massive thank you to my channel members, and thank you very much for watching.